The sheer amount of information hitting us constantly.
News feeds, social media, just endless streams.
And figuring out how to navigate all that. It's not just about knowing stuff anymore. It's about making sense of it.
Especially for young people, that skill it's critical. We're talking about critical thinking.
Right. But it's easy to say kids need critical thinking. What does that actually look like? How do you build it?
And that's really the heart of this deep dive. We got this great set of sources from a listener asking just that.
Yeah, some really interesting articles, research.
Asking why it's vital now, but even more, how can parents, educators actually do this? They wanted practical steps.
Actionable stuff, not just theory.
And the sources really delivered on that front.
Yeah.
They went beyond just explaining the problem.
Gave us concrete ways, yeah. Even looked at modern tools.
That's right. So our goal for you listening in is that by the end of this, you'll have solid ideas.
Prompts even, straight from these sources that you can start using, like today. So let's start with the basics, the why. What do these sources actually say critical thinking is in this context?
What's interesting is how they frame it, not as some fixed talent you're born with.
More like a skill, something you can nurture.
It involves a whole bunch of things. Analyzing info, checking sources,
Evaluating credibility.
thinking about different perspectives, reasoning logically, solving problems, communicating clearly. It's like building mental muscles, really.
Then why is this so urgent right now? The sources seem to really stress the timing.
They did. They emphasize it's key not just for school, but for cognitive growth, personal development.
And for being citizens, I saw that mentioned.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
For becoming informed, engaged citizens in a world that's just incredibly complex, more than ever.
Right. Helping them make good decisions when they're getting hit with all these conflicting messages.
And preparing them to participate. That civic piece feels really important today, doesn't it?
It really does. So how do we start building it?
Simple discussion.
Discussion, you mean actually talking back and forth, not just lecturing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And they specifically argued that discussing current events is, well, particularly powerful.
Okay, why focus there? What's the logic?
It's just more engaging for children because they can see how the issues discussed relate to their own lives and the world around them.
Ah, relevance. Makes sense. It connects directly to their world.
That connection is what motivates the deeper thinking. It's not abstract theory, it's real life.
Okay, I get that. So what specific benefits tie to talking about current events?
We saw quite a few key benefits. First, it really pushes them to consider multiple perspectives. By exposing them to different viewpoints and cultural contexts, it helps them consider perspectives other than their own, gets them outside their own bubble.
Which is so important for understanding complex issues. What else?
Second, it builds reasoning skills and thinking based on evidence. Kids learn to back up their opinions with facts and evidence. They get practice analyzing events, questioning assumptions, connecting things to bigger systems.
So it's not just having an opinion, it's being able to support it.
Exactly. Learning to use facts effectively. That feels like a superpower today.
No kidding. What was the third point?
It builds communication skills and skills for discourse, how to talk about things. They learn to express their opinions clearly and engage in healthy, respectful debates. It's practice in civil conversation.
Healthy, respectful debate. Yeah, we could all use more practice with that.
Fourth, it fosters media literacy and evaluating sources.
Okay. Analyzing news, figuring out what's credible.
Looking at real-world events naturally leads to questions about the credibility and bias of information sources. Just asking, where did you hear that, or who's reporting this, naturally builds that critical evaluation muscle.
Makes sense. It becomes part of the conversation.
Fifth, empathy. How discussing world events helps them develop empathy for others and a deeper understanding of different cultures and social issues.
Connecting with people, understanding experiences beyond their own backyard.
Exactly. And finally, citizenship. Engaging regularly makes them more informed and active citizens.
Better prepared.
Plus, current events often present these really complex problems, no easy answers.
Yeah, definitely.
And that gives them practice in problem solving, encourages creative thinking, maybe even collaboration.
That's a lot of benefit just from talking about what's going on in the world.
It really is powerful.
So discussion, especially current events, is a key vehicle. But that wasn't everything, right? The sources had other strategies, a kind of toolbox.
That's right. The research pointed to several other practical things you could just weave into everyday life. A big one, asking open-ended questions.
Oh, open-ended, meaning not just yes, no.
Questions that push for deeper thinking make them consider multiple possibilities.
Like any examples?
The sources gave was like, what do you think will happen next? Or how could we solve this problem differently?
Forces them to explain their reasoning.
Safe to say that
What else is in the
sweeter,
toolbox?
I caught the fever.
Providing chances
Ay,
for play
yeah, skip the
and
small chat,
exploration.
there ain't no secret
Sounds
that
simple,
I'm gonna
maybe.
need that.
Like, just play.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
designer,
but
I'll
material really
redefine you
emphasizes
until you take my
unstructured
name.
play, building
Yeah,
things
you're
once,
the finest, the
Legos,
peaches
creative
might
art,
as well be
even
up
games and
on my
puzzles.
plate.
How does that build critical thinking?
Because those
I
activities
feel
let
it.
kids experiment,
I'm
make decisions, and solve
finally
problems in a
healing
low-pressure
from all
environment.
that I'm
They're building
chasing.
skills like logic,
No
strategy, and pattern
limitations got
recognition.
me in a
So
cool
play
sweat.
isn't just downtime.
Ooh, how you
Problem-solving
do that?
practice. Another
Don't
strategy.
close your
Encourage
eyes, 'cause
hypothesis
we'll
and
stay up all
Okay,
night
like making
till
educated guesses.
Exactly. Ask things like, what might happen if? Or, what do you predict the outcome will be? This helps them learn to anticipate results and reflect on their thinking.
Meta.
This next one is huge, but pretty straightforward. Model critical thinking yourself.
Show, don't just tell.
Exactly. The sources strongly suggest thinking aloud, weighing pros and cons, explaining how you make decisions when you face a problem. Kids learn so much watching how adults reason things out.
Letting them see the process. Yeah, that makes sense.
6 a.m. now, I take
It
the
really
whole
is.
town, don't
Also,
need
the sources
nobody
stress
else.
giving them time.
You
Time
keep
for
on
reflection,
piquing my
time
interest
for
even
independent
though I
problem
roll by
solving.
myself.
Meaning, don't jump in.
Skip the hotel,
Give
we
kids
kiss,
time
but
to
no
think before
telling, ride this
responding.
carousel.
And this is tough.
The vibes
Resist solving their
nostalgic, it's
problems
New Year
for them
classic.
right away.
I see
Encourage them to try their own solutions
different
first.
ways reflecting
Letting them
off
struggle a
your
bit,
face.
figure
I'm
things out,
painting
builds essential confidence
silhouettes
and
of you
resilience.
up in my
Long-term
brain.
game for
This
short-term
feeling
struggle.
so divine,
Right.
there's no
Lean into the why
turning
phase,
back
basically.
time.
Like
So
questioning
baby,
mindset.
don't close
Encourage
your
them to
eyes,
ask
'cause
questions
we'll
about the
stay
world,
up
pursue
all
their
night till
interests, seek out new information, maybe explore topics with them. And finally, create a supportive environment. Safe space for brainstorming, mistakes, learning from failure.
So it's okay to be wrong.
Absolutely. Celebrate the effort, thinking process, not just the right answer. Critical thinking involves risk, trial, and error. They need to feel safe trying.
That makes so much sense. Fear of failure shuts down that kind of thinking.
Definitely. Now, building on all that, the sources brought up a really interesting, very modern tool using AI prompts. AI, artificial intelligence. How does that fit into teaching critical thinking?
The material wasn't suggesting AI does the thinking for them. Instead, it presented specific questions prompts you can use with an AI tool
Okay.
to stimulate those different critical thinking skills we've been talking about. Think of the AI as a kind of dynamic practice partner.
A digital sparring partner. Okay, give us some examples from the sources.
They had some really compelling ones. For general use, things you could apply almost anywhere. One prompt was, summarize this topic in 3 sentences. They give me 2 reasons someone might disagree with it.
So summary plus counter argument.
Exactly. The sources highlighted how it teaches summarization and immediately forces that perspective taking we talked about.
Clever. What else?
Another, list the pros and cons of a controversial idea, then take a side and defend it with facts.
Building the argument needing evidence.
Directly builds those skills. Using the AI maybe to generate the initial pros and cons list to react to. And this one was neat. Pretend you are a critic of this idea. What questions would you ask to challenge it?
Using the AI to model skepticism.
Exactly. The material noted this sharpens questioning, Socratic thinking. It gives you critical questions to discuss.
Those are great general prompts. Did they have subject-specific ones too?
They did. A few examples.
Like for history?
History or social studies. If a specific historical event never happened, what would the world look like today? Provide 2 ripple effects.
Counterfactual thinking, exploring what-ifs.
Right. Understanding cause and effect. For science, what would happen if one part of this system failed? How would the rest of it be affected?
Systems thinking, how things connect.
Analyzing interactions. And for language arts or, say, debate prep, can you find the logical fallacy in this statement? Explain what it is and why it's flawed.
Oh, nice. Using AI to generate flawed arguments you can then pick apart.
Exactly. Sharpens that rhetorical and logical analysis.
Wow, so these are like actual prompts you could literally copy and paste.
Pretty much. Or adapt them. The sources presented them as really practical tools.
Use them with an AI, then talk through the AI's response and the thinking behind it with your child or student.
Precisely. It's using the tech as an aid for practice, not a replacement for thinking.
That's incredibly actionable. It takes it from abstract ideas to here's something specific you can do.
Yeah, it gives parents and educators another tool, one they might not have thought of integrating this way.
Okay, so let's just recap the journey here through these sources. We started with the why critical thinking is just fundamental now.
Right. Essential for navigating this information age.
Then we saw how discussion, especially about current events, is this really potent way to build specific skills, perspective taking, using evidence, media literacy.
Then we opened up that toolbox of everyday strategies.
Yeah, asking open-ended questions, the surprising power of play, modeling your own thinking, giving them space to figure things out.
Creating that safe space. All those foundational pieces.
And then finally, we saw how technology, specifically AI, isn't just a potential problem, but can actually be used as a tool.
A tool for targeted practice, using those clever prompts to work on specific skills like summarizing, analyzing perspectives, finding fallacies.
Offering a really novel way to engage.
Definitely.
So the whole point of this deep dive really was to arm you, the listener, parent, educator, whoever, with these concrete, actionable ideas pulled straight from the sources.
To show that critical thinking isn't some mystery. It's a skill. And you absolutely can help develop it every day.
Integrating it into conversations, homework time, even playtime.
Exactly. And as the sources make clear, this isn't just about grades. It's about preparing kids for life.
For informed citizenship, for tackling complex problems.
Which brings us to that final thought for you to chew on based on everything we've covered from these sources.
Yeah.
What complex problem out there, big or small, might the young people in your life feel just a little bit more equipped to understand, to analyze, maybe even start to tackle now that they're building these skills and have these tools to practice